Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Lower Stafford Township Open Space Ballot Measure Informational Meeting of May 4, 2026. Ask everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So with that, the agenda, hopefully everyone's picked up a copy. We go back to the room. Some opening remarks. I just want to welcome everyone and thank you for coming out tonight. As you can see, all but one of the board of supervisors made it. I think Rick may be on his way, hopefully. But as it stands currently, the board is united and fully agree on what we're putting forth. And I thought it might be nice for those who haven't kept up maybe with our regular meetings or the YouTube channel. I give you a little background, a little history of what's transpired since our first meeting with the Ballot family in September of 2023. That's right. It's coming up on 2.5 to 3 years in September that we've been dealing with that with the help of council. So once we had that meeting, what happened was the executors of the estate wanted to formally meet with folks that they thought may have an interest in purchasing the property. They met, I think, that day with 5 or 6 different entities, the township being one of them, and said basically in the meeting, hey, we're going to sell the property. Is that something the township would be interested in purchasing and pursuing? And to that, I think there was, from the township side, there was no reservation. It was resounding yes. So once we kind of moved forward from there, as I said, they were ultimately, I think 9 or 10 different suitors had pursued the property, the township being one of them. We prepared in spring of 2024 a yield plan that went through some different iterations. But what it allowed us to do is ultimately get an appraisal of the property. For those who understand the laws of the state of Pennsylvania and when a municipality is going to buy ground, we can't be like a developer. We're not like a developer where we can just offer whatever we like. It has to be, there has to be a foundation for it, and that foundation is an appraisal. What an appraiser needs is a plan that could be done on the property to understand what the value of the property might be. So that process takes some time. Ultimately, in March of 2025, we received a appraisal from Leeds, that's how it's pronounced, telling us that the property is worth $21.8 million. 21.8. And then with that, shortly thereafter, we made a letter of intent to the family, basically telling them, yes, we're interested in the property, we've had it appraised, and this is what we can pay for it. We ultimately got to a period of, I guess, due diligence where we're looking at the property. I think in some of that due diligence period, we had a survey, we did some environmental work, we did some testing, various other things that to make sure what we were buying. And some of that due diligence continues today. So with that, in September of 2025, we entered into an agreement of sale for the purchase of the 62.65 acres, which includes a parcel across the street of Stover Road, which is 5.23 acres, right? So that's included in there. And that, if you go to the county tax map, it says it's Lower Stafford Township. We own an easement over that property, but it's the underlying deed, the underlying title of that property still resides in the Ballot family. So if we're going to buy it, we're going to buy the whole. And then after that agreement of sale, further due diligence went along, and we did had title of the property run, and it became apparent that there was what's called a first right of refusal that the Henning Shopping Center had on the property, right? So that's an encumbrance to the title. We had to get, township had to get that relieved so that if we did buy the property, there wouldn't later be a legal dispute over who could and couldn't buy the property. So that transpired and ultimately got resolved with what's called a tri-party agreement. So H&A Development, I think, is the entity that owns Henning Shopping Center, Ballot Estate, and the township entered into a tri-party agreement to purchase the property, and in exchange, Henning's to relieve them of that first right of refusal, agreed that they could buy 2 acres, 2+ acres of ground,
Up to 2.5.
up to 2.5, at the same price that the township's going to pay for the balance, right? Because the state wants to be made whole. Right. So with that, the tri-party agreement was signed in December. And then that kind of led to, we need a decision on how we're going to pay for the grant. And so that leads us to, I guess, this period of referendum and getting it on the ballot. And the supervisors trying to decide to raise property taxes. Do we do it as an inherent income tax? We also want to garner grants and other funding sources that might be available to help defray the cost of this. So then just shortly after that, it was decided we're going to take this referendum route, which brings everybody here today. In doing so, the township board thought it best to engage a consultant, Natural Lands Trust, and to pay for the cost of that consultant. The 5 of us unanimously agreed to forego our yearly stipend to cover that cost. So we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. We are trying to be as transparent as we can. If you don't come to the meetings, or you don't watch the YouTube videos, you're probably not going to know what's going on. But it's been 2.5 years to get us here today. It was no short task, to say the least. And then with that, that gets us to May 4th, and then May 19th is around the corner. And my hope today is that if you've got questions about the referendum or the process, or you want further details, you can certainly ask us. A couple of supervisors weren't here when a lot of that happened, but since January, been heavily involved as one becomes. You can also go to the township staff. Joe Jakowski, Grace is here tonight, and get your questions answered. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Natural Lands Trust to kind of lead us forward.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Of course.
It feels really dramatic to come into the middle of the room here like this. They don't have to stand up in the middle. They got a table. I think that Mike is bringing up a presentation. It's a little bit awkward because I have some slides here that I hope will help communicate the process of what a referendum is itself, the referendum that the township is proposing, and a little bit of context around that. So it'll be helpful to look at that. But
so this is Kyle Rose.
yeah, let's do that. Thank you.
Let's start there.
Yeah. I'm Kyle Rose. I'm with Natural Lands. I'm Director of Land Protection, and I love what I do, and I jump right into it. So I apologize for that. But yeah, I've been at Natural Lands. I'm here with my colleague Kate Rahman, a planner with our group. And together, we, when a township is interested in working with us on a referendum, we work with the townships on that. And so, as Supervisor Greg Bergman mentioned, they contracted us to help them on the technical side. This is a township, as you probably all know, and probably why you're here tonight is because you believe in your township, you trust your township, you're proud of your township. I would just say that they've been strategic throughout this whole process. And so some townships need a lot of help and some townships need less help. And this is a township that's clearly very strategic and thoughtful in how they've gone about this. Nevertheless, I'd like to think that we've provided some value throughout the process. You can go next slide. So next slide. A little bit about the background of why we're even able to be here tonight. Over the course of 4 acts since 1967, Pennsylvania has passed and amended basically the open space enabling legislation that allows municipalities to generate funding for open space acquisitions and stewardship. And that could be through an earned income tax, a property tax, a combination of those taxes, or to issue bonds for the purposes of open space funding. It also enabled municipalities to use this funding to both protect the acquisition side and also to conserve and steward those lands. The most recent act, the 2013 act, provided the townships with the power to use 25% of the revenue that they would bring in from these open space taxes to use in stewardship. And the 2022 one specifically called out the right of those townships to use that land on any open space that is publicly accessible, even if they acquired it prior to having the revenue and using the open space revenue the way it was. And so this means that all of the great work the township has done in the past, this revenue actually helps them better steward the lands that they already own, as well as those that they would then acquire over time with the revenue, if you so choose to pass it. And so that's the last point here, is that revenue, the open space revenue, must be used for an open space benefit on properties open to the public. So obviously there's a lot of ways that could not be true if it's not used for an open space benefit, or if it's used on property that's not open to the public for many, many different ways, it would not be eligible. So it does constrain what's allowed to be used for. It's not a slush fund for the operating budget. It is specific for open space acquisition and stewardship. Next slide. So we worked with the township to formulate the formal ballot question. And yes, this is what you will see on your ballot on May 19th. It is not in plain English. There is a plain English version available online that's easier to understand, but this is kind of statutorily how it has to be laid out. So the parts that are the beginning part: do you favor the imposition of an additional earned income tax at the rate of 1/4% or 0.25% by Lower Salford Township for the purpose of acquiring? All of that, other than Lower Salford Township, is set by law. That's the way it has to be formed to begin the question. For the purpose of acquiring the Alabac property at 460 Stover Road, Harleysville, and other lands and interests in real property for open space. And here we worked with the township to delineate these kind of 3 bullet points, and they're pulled directly from your open space plan, at least the concepts and most of the language, because these are goals the township has had for a long time. This revenue, this open space tax, is seen as a way to further pursue those long-term goals. And so with that, we did not have to make up a lot of language here. This is what's integrated in your plans already. So 1, to protect the township's farmland, scenic views, historic sites, and rural character. 2, to protect the woodlands, wetlands, and the skipback and Perkiomen creeks and their tributaries. And 3, to enhance and create community recreation opportunities. So those are the broad ways that you should think about how your township would want to use these funds. It's to accomplish those purposes. The legislation allows for this to evolve over time. If we find out something really dramatic through science or other things that we really need to be responsive to another open space, a way of framing open space benefit, the law allows for that. But this is so that you understand how your supervisors and your township are proposing to use these funds. The last bit is really what's taken straight from the law itself, or the acts themselves. So they can use it to retire indebtedness and to pay transaction fees incidental to such acquisitions. So they go into debt to acquire these things. There's things like appraisals and title reviews that Supervisor Bergman's already mentioned. And to pay other expenses for the preparation of resource, recreation, or land use plans related to such acquisitions. So you buy a property, what do you do after that? You buy a large property like Alabac. Now there's a whole set of processes that you have to go through, or you should go through, to use that land as well as you possibly can for the benefit of your residents. So that takes money, that takes planning. So there are other grant programs that these funds can go towards to help bring in the money needed to hire the people that can help with the master planning, to facilitate meetings with residents, to do focus groups, all of that kind of stuff that helps them use the property and use it well as part of this. To finance the expenditure of up to 25% of annual revenue for the development, improvement, design, engineering, and maintenance of lands acquired for an open space benefit or benefits. And that's part of what I just said, but that's the 25% that's allowed to be used on the ground. So it can be used for people township employees that are doing work on those publicly accessible open space places, which then frees up money from operating budgets that maybe right now that's funded from operating, in the future could be funded from this. So that's the basic ballot question. It's a mouthful for sure. But if you break it down line by line, it's hopefully it's accessible, and you know we'll answer questions throughout the evening if there's specific questions about clauses in here. Next question. Next. So just to give you a feel for how you relate to your neighbors, both in earned income tax overall and also with revenue for open space by other neighboring townships. Direct neighbors, you've got Franconia and Skippack that have open space EITs. Those were passed in, I think, 2001, the same year. Since then, there hasn't been a lot in this area. This last year, Montgomery County re-initiated their Montco Forever Green grant program. And since then, we've been hearing more interest from more townships that want to get involved in that revenue source, because the money that comes from this open space tax can be used as leverage, basically, to bring in money from the county to invest in the township on open space. So Lower Southwick's proposing a 0.25% open space earned income tax to add on to 0.5 current residential income tax. That's apart from the school district EIT. And so together that brings the current EIT to 1% and the proposed to 1.25%. And you can see here, as you compare yourself to Towamencin, Upper Salford, Franconia, and Skippack, that you would be closer to Towamencin and Upper Salford than to say Skippack. Their residential earned income tax burden, even after passing this earned income tax, if you so choose to do so. Next one. Visually, I talked about neighbors, but if you think more broadly, there's every township in purple and across the way also in Bucks County that it's in purple has passed an open space referendum in the past and currently have revenue coming into their townships to be able to buy these types of properties for preserving scenic value or providing recreation space. These are other townships in your region that are currently doing this. Next one. And so what does it really mean to you? We kind of broke this down. There's a picture of, I think this is Alabak itself, $18.78 per month for the average person's salary here in Lower Salford Township, and $20.83 a month for a person making $100,000 a year. Next slide. Another view of those same two figures of between $18.75 and $20.83 per month for different ways of thinking about your average or typical resident to preserve lands along Skippack and Perkiomen Creeks. Next slide. And to do the same for recreation and scenic values. And that works out to roughly, that's actually less than 2 large pizzas at Laura's right down the road here that I almost stopped at on my way here. Oh yeah, well, I had to get a chana masala at the curry place by Hennings. Anyway, so this is not a promotional video for that. Nevertheless, very good. But yeah, hopefully that puts it in perspective what you're voting for, why you're able to vote for it, and a little bit about your neighbors around you. Yeah, happy to answer more questions throughout the evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah.
So good evening, everyone. I'm Kate Rahman from Natural Lands, and I'm going to be introducing your expert speakers tonight. So first of all, I'd really like to thank all of the speakers that came out tonight to talk about the potential for open space here in the township. We have worked to find experts that align with your 3 criteria from your open space plan. So Steve Zabinski is a senior farmland preservation planner from Montgomery Planning Commission. He's going to be talking a little bit about farmland in the county and how it connects here to your referendum question. David Arstad is the executive director, president, and research scientist at Stroudwater Research Center. And he'll be talking about the streams and the water quality here. And then Dulcie Flatterly is a former executive director of Montgomery County Lands Trust to speak to you about recreation opportunities and trail linkages and that could connect to both the Olivac property and additional properties in your township. This is not just about Olivac, it's about quite a few other open space opportunities that you have. So Steve, would you like to come on up?
Good evening, everyone. As Kate mentioned, my name is Stephen Sabinski. I manage the Farmland Preservation Program at the Montgomery County Planning Commission. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Don't mind me as I just read some notes off as I go throughout my presentation. You have the.
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. Not a problem. Yeah.
He doesn't know where to answer.
But what my goal here is today is to really just kind of provide a little bit of context of farmland, what it means to a community, and what preservation kind of means from a practical standpoint. So go ahead, next slide. So what is farmland? A lot of times when people think farmland, they think open space, and that kind of can be correct depending on what your term is. To me, though, open space misses the point. That's because farmland is working land. It produces food, supports jobs, maintains rural heritage, and plays a major role in the local economy. This is on an everyday basis. While it does all of that, it also places very little demand on public services. Montgomery County alone, like I said, we have our own farmland preservation program. We have preserved 10,990 acres on 203 different farms. That represents about a third of the county's farmland. So we are very much a farming county, which a lot of people are not aware of. Specifically in Lower Salford, they have preserved 336 acres on 8 different farms, with the first farm being preserved in 1990s. It shows the strong agricultural heritage that you do have in this township. And on those 8 farms, it's a very diverse, wide variety of farming operations that you have. There's fruit and veggie productions, a CSA, all different types of feed crops, a dairy farm, which is actually one of the last ones in Montgomery County. We don't have too many of those anymore. All different livestock and several different forms of agritourism that are offered on these farms. And this variety on just 8 farms really reflects how adaptable agriculture can be, with farms often evolving over time to meet changing markets and community needs. And that's something Lower Salford should definitely be very proud of. So let's just jump right into rural heritage and kind of what it means. Farmland can definitely shape how a community feels and looks. Think about the roads that you drive throughout the day, the rolling hills of crops, the views of livestock off in the distance, changing seasons across the open fields, or the sense of peace that seems to be disappearing anymore. Those scenic landscapes aren't accidental. They exist because farmland exists, and they directly impact the quality of life. People choose to live in places like this because it doesn't feel overcrowded, it doesn't feel overburdened or overbuilt. In fact, proximity to a lot of open lands like these, which are in Lower Salford, these are all pictures from roads. Lands like this support and increase property values. These visual and spatial qualities are difficult to measure, but they're often part of what residents notice most about where they live. And of course, farmland has a multitude of environmental benefits. They provide prime habitat for birds, pollinators, and other wildlife. In fact, just around the corner in Franconia, we have a farm that sees a flock of purple martins migrate to their farm every year, all the way from Brazil. They stay on the farm several months throughout the year, simply because they're able to provide the habitat that the purple martin birds needs, which is just really neat to see, especially in Montgomery County. Farms support ecological diversity through different landscapes. They protect watersheds by acting as natural stormwater management. Simply just absorbing rain and preventing runoff or preventing flooding just does wonders to the overall landscape. The streams that the flooding would go into, farms are able to mitigate all of that and act as stormwater management. And of course, all that together help reduce any effects of climate change. And obviously, there are plenty of economic benefits as well. Agriculture creates employment, both directly through farm operations and indirectly through businesses that support them. So equipment supply stores, manufacturers, different markets, fruit processors, etc. It's all incorporated within farmland. Farms also rely on local goods and services, so that helps keep the money circulating within the local economy. And kind of similarly with agritourism, we have a lot of farms engaging in different forms of agritourism. also bringing in money to the local economy of the township, both from residents and tourists alike. So needless to say, that farms function as an active part of the local economic system. Farms also play a role in food security, which is generally understood as having reliable access to sufficient food. This is a really important topic to discuss, not only now, but moving forward in years as food security and having the access to it. Farms will help contribute by producing food close to where it is consumed, which can supplement larger supply chains. They reduce the reliance on long distance transportation, which reduces food mileage and carbon footprint. So when you think of food that's grown locally and sold locally, it's being picked fresher. It's not being picked underripe and ended up ripening up throughout the transport, whether it be 1-2 weeks across the state, across the nation. If you're buying local food, it's picked in its prime ripeness, tastes a lot better. You can find it at farmers markets or even local stores all throughout. And farms will also preserve the capacity to produce food over time. So once land is converted to other uses, that production capacity becomes capped or is simply no longer available. And local agriculture can add diversity to the food system, offering a range of products and multiple points of access. As stated earlier, the different range of products, whether it be fruits and vegetables or livestock, whatever it might be. And then, of course, having the farms, whether they're selling at farmers markets or directly on the farm, they all offer different points of access to purchase the food. I think that's the last slide, actually, but I just wanted to mention before I finished up, I just wanted to give some quick details about what farmland is, why it's important. But in the beginning, I mentioned that farmland is often thought of as simply open space, but as I just quickly discussed in a few minutes, it serves many roles. It contributes to the economy, supports environmental functions, reflects the history of a community, and helps shape the character of a township like Lower Salford. Seeing farmland in that broader context doesn't lead to any one conclusion, but it does highlight that it is an active and multifaceted part of any community. Once the farmland is gone, and I cannot stress this enough, once farmland is gone, there is no getting it back. And because of that, it becomes part of a much longer timeline of decisions about how land is used and how a community can evolve over time. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes. Hello, good evening. Good evening. Thank you for asking me to come forward and share some thoughts on open space preservation and environmental quality and water quality. Again, my name is Dave Arstad. I'm director of Stroud Water Research Center. I'm an ecosystem ecologist, freshwater scientist, water scientist. I've been with the Stroud Center for more than 20 years. So I think first, I'm here to share this perspective about water quality in our streams and rivers and the importance of open space preservation, but also in that context, forests and other natural landscape features like wetlands, woodlots, grasslands as well. Go ahead and the next slide, please. So, you know, the specific point here is that these types of landscapes, forests, lands, and other natural lands are critical landscape features that help protect and restore our freshwater quality in our streams, rivers, lakes, and including our aquifers, our groundwater systems. I think we can all agree that freshwater is essential to life and thus is an important resource that we should manage responsibly. And just take you on a journey for a moment as a raindrop falling on the land and remembering our hydrologic cycle and how water moves. As it falls on our landscapes, it moves through whatever that matrix is, whatever that landscape is. It dissolves stuff along the way, especially things that can be easily dissolved, like salts or other materials that we use on our lands, oils, pesticides, greases, etc. And then that water either infiltrates into the ground, joining our groundwater, or runs off the landscape directly into our wetlands, lakes, rivers, etc. or it's immediately used by plants and evapotranspired back up, right? This is kind of the basics of the hydrologic cycle. So whatever the landscape is, where that water drop falls, that sets the fingerprint of your local water quality in our freshwater systems. So go ahead to the next slide, please. I think since we're here looking at maps and talking about the township and discussing this issue, just quickly a few maps. Township boundary is roughly delineated there. And the point here is to put the blue lines in there, the streams and rivers, and look a little bit more at the intersection of the township and your local watersheds. Go ahead, one more. Here we just zoom in to see that we have the west branch of the skip pack, and on the sort of north and west side is the Perkiomen, the east branch of the Perkiomen. Next slide, roughly your landscape, the landscape in the township here is dominated by developed land in the pink and red hues, and significant portion in agriculture, as we've been discussing, pasture and row crop, that's yellow and brown, and the green are different types of forest features. So roughly the township area is about 45% of the developed pinks and reds, 33% ag, and about 19% forest and other natural lands like wetlands and some of the grasslands there. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, there are, yeah, we can go ahead to the next one. There are sort of two larger watersheds that intersect the township. As I've already mentioned, the Perkiomen to the north and west side. And in fact, this watershed has a similar composition, landscape composition to lower Salford Township that I just mentioned. And so that picture shows you the watershed boundaries. Any drop of water falling in that highlighted area flows down those streams and rivers that are the Perkiomen. And so that water that comes off of lower Salford Township flows in that direction, ultimately then to the Schuylkill River and to the Delaware, right? Drinking water for our downstream neighbors, but also water that's delivered potentially as floodwaters to our downstream neighbors as well. Next slide is, yeah, go ahead, is the Skippack Creek tributary. This one is the east branch or the west branch. There's other branches there, but that's almost wholly in the township, and I believe the Allerbach property is within that particular tributary. Again, the land covered here is highly reflective of the township. So next slide. So in returning to my main point on the relationship between forest and water quality, since I'm a scientist and here with you all tonight, it's hard not to show data and a couple figures to help make my point. But I promise I'll keep it simple and limited to 3 graphs. So next slide, a little bit complicated here, but on the far right are some pictures of some animals. These are aquatic insects, mayflies, stoneflies, and caddisflies. These are the canaries in the coal mine in our water industry, in our ecology industry. We go to creeks all over and collect these and see how many there are, what diversity of life they are, and we use them as a metric for how healthy the streams and rivers are, right? So the graphs here are showing forest cover on the x-axis from 0% forest to 100% forest. Each one of those dots is a different watershed that we've sampled, a stream site, and then the surrounding watershed area that we've quantified the forest cover. On the vertical axis are these water quality scores defined by the macrovertebrate communities, these bugs, the mayflies, stoneflies, caddisflies, and other invertebrates. And the main point here is as we lose forest in our watersheds, we degrade water quality. We lose the diversity of life. Some of these animals can't live without forest, or maybe more importantly, they can't live because of the things that are replacing forests and the environmental contamination or pollution or degradation of habitat that is commensurate when we lose that forest cover. The other thing I'll just point out is there's a lot of variability in that relationship. It's a strong relationship that is showing streams and rivers with a lot of forests are healthier than without. But what it's not showing you is what are we losing the forests to? And that's some of the variability in here. We lose forests to homes, agriculture, roads, and a lot of other things. And not all landscapes, not all of those are the same as far as environmental impact. This is for the Schuylkill River sites. These are our data from the Stroud Center over probably the last 20 years. One more slide here with data, just to show you even a broader view of the entire Delaware River Basin, where we have many more sites over, here's a 5-year period. But in general, everywhere we go, just about across the world, I can say, this relationship holds. We have sort of an incremental loss in the health of our ecosystems as we lose the natural components of our watersheds. And this is, again, assessed by macroinvertebrate biodiversity. That's on the vertical axis. Last figure here that I'll show is just to translate that biology into something that might be monetary. Some great work done by the American Waterworks Association a while ago, but clearly showing that the more forest that you have in a watershed, the better the water quality, and the less money has to be spent cleaning that water to make it drinkable, potable water. All right, next slide. And, as I mentioned, again, there was a lot of scatter there. It all depends on what's replacing the forest, and not all of these landscapes are created equal. We have roads, we have homes, we have businesses, we have agriculture, different types of agriculture. There's a lot of variability in there, and that's why we get such a variable response. Next slide, please. So, in coming back, it's very clear, the science tells us more forest and natural lands leads to better water quality. What I haven't said is, next slide, please, is also forests and wetlands and grasslands and these natural landscapes help absorb stormwater. And you have less stormwater leaving the property and causing flood damage downstream to the receiving neighbors. So there's another strong benefit for preserving open land, in particular our woodlands, our wetlands, and our grasslands. Next slide. Forests and these natural landscapes also offer better temperature control in our streams and rivers, something that's becoming more and more challenging as climate shifts and we have warmer and warmer conditions. We're losing our cool water and our cold water fish species because of the warming. And when we have a lot of development that brings in roads and rooftops, we get a lot hotter rivers and streams and makes life more difficult for fish and other animals. Next click, please. To reiterate, part of the message here is that open space is a really important tool. Depends on the type of open space and how you manage the open space. And not all open spaces are the same, right? There's ag, there's recreation, there's other types of ways that we'll use these landscapes. So really these last points are to encourage that next step, hopefully seeing the value in preserving open space for environmental quality and water quality. Next couple, or go back one, sorry. Oh, no, that's right. Please, yeah. Just, what is open space? I think that was already well defined here. So I'll just leave that in there for the record. Public lands, private lands, farmlands, etc., are all in that open space definition. If we come back to then my very last slide. There are different ways we use the land, and that can have different ways that it impacts the environment, right? And even within agricultural setting, row crops, hay pasture, There's intensive agriculture, there's regenerative organic agriculture, there's a wide variety of types of agriculture. So each of those pieces has a little bit different impact on water quality. So it really is important to consider how that open space will be protected, what management plans are, and to be thinking about optimizing that to enhance the environmental value in the end. Things like riparian forest buffers could be enhanced on these properties and other environmental best management practices. So thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Good evening. Does anybody need to stretch? Does anybody have to move around? Okay, you can move around. I'm not going to throw a lot of data out here. My name is Dulcie Flaherty. I was Executive Director of Montgomery County Lands Trust for over 20 years, and I've been on the Montgomery County Planning Commission for over 30 years. Before I had white hair, I was on that board. And I learned how to be a lay planner. I was an art history major in college, so it was a big, big change to learn about the place in which I lived and the natural qualities of that place. Over the 30 years that I've worked with communities, with individuals, with state officials, saving open space, building parks, making trails available for our people, lots of money has been spent. Lots of communities have done open space referenda. They spent their own money from tax revenues that they could squirrel away. In all those years, not one person who spent money on open space came back to me and said, you know, that was a waste of money we spent on open space. Not one person. Every community that does this, even people who are financially very thrifty, say this was something that we thought people would like. But what we found out is it's what people love. We do things like save open space because we know that the places in which we live do change, but we have a chance to make them unique and wonderful for our communities and really different. Over the years that I've done this, I have driven through Harleysville every day of my working life. My first office was in Little Rock. My first two offices were in Little Rock. And my third office was right in Harleysville. I passed that farm. And 30-some years ago, all we did was say, can we preserve that farm? Look at that beautiful farm. We need to preserve it. In those years, Lower Southford has changed. We used to have lots of open space, lots of farms, lots of places where you could look and see the horizon and where the animals could go. Well, that's really changed, hasn't it? Now we have a lot more people, a lot more citizens who can benefit from public open space. And you have a set of public officials who are bold enough and brave enough to say, that's a good use of our tax dollars. And they come back to you and say, do you agree with us? By protecting the all about property, we're going to change a cornerstone of this community, which really talked about the agricultural heritage of the area. And we get to possibly change it into a new keystone that talks about a community that wants to bring people onto the open space, people who can interact in the open space. This Board of Commissioners is looking not to save open space from people, but to save open space for people to use it, for people to enjoy it. And that's really a bold and progressive idea. You know, when we started our open space program in Montgomery County, it was in 1993. It was $100 million program. It's a lot of money. And it was structured in the way that every municipality in Montgomery County could acquire money for good planning and good preservation. But you needed some money to bring that county money to the table. We always say that when you want to buy something like open space, it's like a three-legged stool. It is sometimes state money, as Steve said, sometimes it's county money, but you gotta have that local money. And if you don't, what happens? The stool falls over. So looking ahead and seeing where you're going to be able to have that money, both to protect it and to enhance it. In that new bill that was passed in 2013, that came about after we had lots of communities buy open space. And they had it, and they had a gravel parking lot that people were coming to, and they said, well, how can we use it? What, there's not a trash can here, there's not a trail here, but we're out of money. So the law was changed, and the distinction was made that when you have an earned income tax, when you're bringing money in, you can use it to enhance it more for the people who want to use it, which is really important. So where are we now? We looked at Lower Salford many years ago when we started the open space program, and guess what? Lower Salford was ahead. It was ahead of a lot of municipalities in Montgomery County because you were already building trails. Trails were really important, but not only did you build traditional trails, but I always love to say you build community pathways. You had those pathways. I see a fellow back there saying, you had pathways behind subdivisions. You had pathways where you could walk with your children quietly and get from one place to the other. It was a model for how people really can move amongst their community. And when you're on your trails, you often see, you see your neighbors. It was funny, when we started the trail program in Montgomery County, we had to do, not the trail program itself, but the big Perkiomen Trail. We had to work to acquire over 200 parcels. And it was really, the commissioner at the time, Mike Marino, I don't know if any of you remember him, who wasn't afraid of people not liking him, because he said, this is important for the public good. And when he went through, it turned out that most of those parcels could be achieved with people agreeing to let a right of way through. And it ended up in the end, I think there were 7 parcels that were in conflict, and basically they came back in on all friendly agreements. So we opened a trail in less than 3 or 4 years, and what it became is what we used to call the Trail of Smiles, because every time you walked on the trail in Montgomery County through those places, you had somebody to talk to, somebody to smile at, and feeling really energetic and a place to go. It wasn't like you had to buy a gym membership. When you have these open spaces in your communities and you have trails, there's always some place to go and exercise. It's both recreation and sometimes I like to say contemplation, because they're places that people really do enjoy. So we've had programs. Lower Salford has been involved in them. Steve was talking about the farmland preservation. Money has come into Lower Salford during the farmland acquisition program, which started in the 90s. With state money and county money, it's over $6 million. People don't know that. You see these little gray signs with the purple writing, this farm preserve. That's a big investment. Guess what? It's also your tax dollars. It's your tax dollars at the state level and the county level and the local level to preserve these benefits. And the benefits on farms, you don't necessarily have to have acquisition of to be able to walk on it. It's the benefits are also there, as Dave said, from the water and the air and things like that. So we're protecting cherished places, and the Allbach property can be the new cherished place in Salford, Lower Salford, because people, once you determine how you're going to deal with it, and hopefully that will be an open conversation. It can have natural areas. It can be replanted with trees. It can have butterfly gardens. It can have trails. It can have playgrounds. It could have ball fields. It's going to be up to you, but it will be there on 63, and it will be a cornerstone for this community. And I think that's pretty remarkable, that this place that we thought many years ago should be a farm forever will be a place very different than what we thought about. But that's what today is about. It's being able to be flexible and thoughtful about what the needs of your community would be today. Throughout Montgomery County, when we did the open space referendum, which was really run by the Lands Trust, we went to 62 municipalities throughout Montgomery County, 62. And we went and we asked every municipality voted on the question, do you want to spend $150 million on open space? As was Carl said, it's a very strict language you have to use. But this was to Roxborough, and this was to Upper Salford, and this was to Franconia, and this was to Lower Merion, and this was to Bryn Athyn. Guess what? Every single one, 62 of them said yes. Every single one of them. And the most interesting thing was that people in the eastern part of the county said yes at a higher degree than people out here who have all the services, because they knew what they lost. So it's up to you whether you vote yes or vote no, but what we want you to do is think in the long term what you want for your community, what is going to be there today and tomorrow, both for natural resources, for personal enjoyment. It's now's the time to really think about it. There are going to be, when I look at the trail map in Lower Salford, I can't believe what it looks like. I had a little picture of it. It looked like red, pink spaghetti that were totally surrounding the Albach property. I wish I had, you have so many paths and trails that are kind of like coming onto the property. I can't wait to see how it's going to be connected. And the Evansburg trail that's on the county plan, it's not started yet, but trails take a long time. They take a lot of money and they take a long time when they're big regional circuit trails. Eventually, when all the people in Montgomery County keep saying, how can we get there? We need a trail. That trail will be here. And then you're going to be able to move around. And how great, since we're not going to be able to move around on the roads. I live in Marlborough Township. I've lived there for 50 years. There were 2 traffic lights to get to the Northeast Extension when I was working. Does anybody know what there are now?
A few more.
A few more. As my grandchildren would say, it's big. So we're going to be able to move on our trails. We're going to be able to enjoy our trails. You're going to have, if you decide that you want it and you decide you're going to support your very wise commissioners to say yes, it's up to you. But the interesting thing is you're going to have a place that's special, that makes Lower Salford different than any place else. It's going to be visible. It's going to be approachable. And you're going to see your tax dollars using on something that does not get used up and does not go away. That's pretty unusual. And it's going to be here for you, your children, your friends, grandchildren, and they won't remember you, and they're not going to remember your names either, but you know that they're going to be enjoying it. So it's a wise decision that's going to be made, but it's important to think about the broad benefit and the deep benefit that is available to this community in protecting this very special place. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you again to everyone who came to speak this evening. We're going to start the formal Q&A. So if you have a question for township staff, supervisors, any of our presenters, please feel free to come up to the mic. We would like you to state your name, address, and your question. And it is going to be on the record and recorded. If anyone is nervous to ask a question, we're going to have a more informal Q&A at the end of the meeting. So if you're feeling shy, there'll be another opportunity for you to ask questions.
Any questions?
My name is John Del Pizzo. I live at 431 Pin Oak Court in Harleysville. First of all, I fully support the acquisition. I think it's great for all the ideas and the comments and all the things were presented here. But what I didn't hear was how you came about the support of how we're going to pay for it. It sounded like there were 3 options for paying for it. the earned income tax, real estate tax, or a bond. Could you explain the thought process that went on in determining that you were going to go with the earned income tax?
Sure. So, as you stated, there is a couple of funding options that were available to us. One of them is raising real estate taxes. And what that would mean is all the folks that own property in the township would experience a rise in their real estate taxes with that money then going to homes. The reason we were cold on that issue, we did look at it initially. In fact, what we looked at was an earned income tax and a rise in the real estate tax. What we didn't like is those on fixed income, right? They're gonna participate in that. And we didn't think that was a good way to go. Better way to go, what we looked at was having an earned income tax. And then we will be taking out a bond to pay the estate and purchase the property. But the money, the revenue that comes in through the earned income tax will pay that mortgage loan, if you follow what I'm saying. So that's the mechanism that seemed to be the most advantageous for us. Still working folks, you're currently paying 1%, right? So now you're paying 1.25, a small incremental increase to a benefit that will outlive us all. So that was the condensed version of the conversation that we had. That was a good question. Just to add on to that real briefly, the other thing we're going to do is we're going to pursue once we have this in place, and I hope everyone votes favorably on it, we're going to pursue grants and other funding sources, right? So that in the future, to the extent that we don't need to have 0.25, we need to have 0.2, 0.18, it can always be reduced. So that's kind of the thought process there. Let's see. One of the grants we most recently put in for was $2 million with DCNR, right? So that's 10%, it's about 10% of the project. So we're, to the extent we're able, with these grant sources, you got to keep in mind, right? It has to be a match to the township's commitment, right? To getting the money. So it's not just a panacea, but it does help, right? It does raise the cost, and to the extent we can get the cost of rate, we're going to do that.
And just to add on to that, sorry, there are other properties that have been coming up, and that we would also hopefully be able to purchase. There's an acre of my Grand Community Church. Yeah, there's the 12-acre lot on the Store Road over by Grand Community Church. There, we're looking at purchasing. There's also another large parcel of land in the township that I was personally speaking to the owner that he doesn't want it developed. He'd rather sell it to the township in order to keep it as preserved open space. So there's quite a few things we can do with this money. It's very exciting to think about. It can also, as some of the speakers have mentioned, we can use this to maintain our existing parks. Some of the trailways that we have in there, it may cost $10 million to try to repave a lot of these walkways and trailways that we have. And that will also be a tax increase. We could probably use this instead of doing something like that. So there's a lot we can put towards this money toward. And there's some other avenues to our health. The golf course going to be paid off in the next few years.
Right. Well, the township's debt is going to be relieved here in 2027. Now we may take on other projects in the future, but it's separate from.
So it'll just and the only thing any of this money can be used for is parks and open space. So it's not, if you use it as a real estate tax, then all of a sudden that money can start to move around. Suddenly we have extra money to use that.
It would be more general fund,
right? It would be general fund, and then all of a sudden, we move. Let's use some of that, some of that. This is specifically for parks, so we think it's just a great option.
It's no different than we have a tax for the library, right? A tax for the fire company, the tax. It's dedicated. This is dedicated. But you can't use it for anything. Next time.
You sure?
Yeah. One more thing.
My name's Maureen Kratz. I live in Lower Southford, and I just have a couple questions. You're right. I have not been coming to township meetings, but you'll start seeing me more often. I don't have anything against open space, and I spoke with Joe, I can't say his last name. Him, yeah. We've emailed back and forth quite a bit, and I've obtained a lot of information from him. But what I don't understand is, first of all, it's a lot of money to not really have an idea of what it's going to be. Like tonight, we talked about saving farmland, we talked about trails, we talked about playgrounds, we talked about all kinds of things. But you're asking two-income families whose increase is not going to be $250. It's probably going to be significantly more than that, to put out a lot of money when we have, I mean, are we going to keep it as a working farm? If we keep it as a working farm, will that benefit the people who are food insecure in our area? Like, I'm just have a lot of questions, and I'm wondering if anybody can help me understand what the plan is.
So I'll start with that. I'm also serving as chairman of the park board. I would say that, you know, we consistently listen to the township's needs and try to understand and give the supervisors direction on where we see it. An example, last year, you know, pickleball became a thing. We were able to put a couple pickleball courts in a couple of our recreation areas. We've always listened to the community, and that is our intention for the Ballot track. I think I speak for all supervisors.
But $21 million, like, when are we talking about this actually becoming something? I mean, we've saw the scare tactics of what it could be. I got a copy of that as well, but we have nothing.
I'm sorry, that's what will be, if we don't buy.
And we have other ways to buy it, right? So if the earned income tax doesn't go through, Joe told me that you guys had other things that you were looking at. Is that true?
We would have to
Like-
consider other options at that point. Sure.
Okay,
Just
so
like we said, it could be the real estate tax.
yeah,
So
I'm just asking
we've got
questions,
lots
guys.
of that.
That's all. I just,
I'll tell you what, come back after May 19th. We'll see what we're gonna do. We won't know.
so on
This
May
passes-
20, right?
This passes on May 19th, all of these what ifs.
So by May
scary
20th, you're gonna have a plan?
And in terms of, we're gonna close on the property, own it, we're gonna put together a group of citizens, right? Not unlike the planning commission, not unlike, you know, the other committees that we have in the township. We have a trail committee. We garner as much information as we can. We try to make great decisions for the township. So we're gonna do the same thing. Or keep it very open and transparent.
So, yeah, it's the plan for the property is to keep it down at the, okay, apart. We may put and this is just a, maybe, we have to put a parking lot in there. The people can use it, they can actually park and say, maybe put a pavilion there.
All great things. I'm just wondering, like, is that what our intention is? Because we spoke about farmland, keeping it farmland. So I'm just wondering what direction we're going in.
Time being, that the farm. Okay, keep it as farmland, there might be a portion of it that will always keep as farm. But again, we have to get input from the communities who they would like it.
It's truthful. Also, the funding sources will dictate what we can or can't do. That's correct.
Right. Well, the open space, I mean, that's what they had said, all the things that open space can do.
It's all-
You seem a little upset with my questions. I apologize.
I think all comers, I've had all the difficult questions asked, I've read this stuff online.
I didn't know.
It's the negative stuff that I can live without, right?
What did I
Stuff-
do?
No, you didn't do anything. I'm just saying, it's not you. You know, it's out there for the public to see.
Yes, and we only have good intentions for the property. So.
Hi, Tara Jackson, 205 Fairway Court. My property backs right up to the Alabak farm. My pool overlooks the farm. But first and foremost, I want to say thank you for giving up your stipend to bring on people to help make this decision. I don't see any reason to point fingers at anybody to say that you guys are doing anything negative. I think that this is great. My comment is, I don't care what you do with it in any of those open space options. All of them are better than the alternative, which, like you said, will be what it is. I don't care if it's farmland. I don't care if it's a park. I don't care if it's just plain old open space. That doesn't matter to me as long as there's not more condos, fast food restaurants, etc. My question is, what 2.5 acres does Hennings possibly want to purchase? Is it next to it, behind it?
directly next to where
The grass
St.
is
Luke's
out there.
you know where St. Luke's is
Yeah,
right now? Just.
so if they wanted to extend on the strip mall look of
It's
it, yeah,
the sliver adjacent to what they already.
And it's not
Okay.
extending, they want to expand.
Right.
St. Luke's, so we had, I think it's I think diagnostic center. Be great for the community.
sure, yeah, I just wondered if
We
it was
don't
behind
have
it
to go
or
over
next to it.
feet, maybe 100 feet the most.
I don't see that as a negative at all, I just wonder where it was.
The fact is, that's something we need to do for the project, so it's.
Right, that will extinguish the right of first refusal that H&N Development has
Sure.
on the entire property. Right. So we thought that was a great trade-off, to get the.
All right, you do whatever you have to do to make sure that that stays open space. Put that on the record, I agree. Headings can build whatever the hell they want there.
But they go through land development just like everybody else. We didn't give any predetermined approvals,
Yeah.
Randy. Correct. So they're gonna have to do the deal. So it's, but it is grounded, we're gonna give up out of that open space in this tri-party agreement.
Okay.
It was for all, everybody's benefit.
I appreciate everything that you guys have done. I understand that it is a little bit of money for people to have to pay, but they're gonna pay it either way, whether it's in your earned income or the township's gonna find a way to do it. So if you don't want to put it on the people that don't currently have an increased income and it would bring up their property taxes, I think that most people can afford that little bit so that we can have it.
We viewed it as your taxes would go up any which way you do this. If the ground gets developed, then it becomes commercial in the front and apartments and houses in the back. We're gonna need more police officers, we're gonna need more services. There's a cost to the community at large. So we felt this is the least impacted and most beneficial for the community. So
My kids go to Oak Ridge, which is the same school that the children would go to if they built houses on that property. And last year they were busing kids to West Broad because there wasn't room for kindergartners to come in. So kids that were in 5th grade, their siblings that were coming into kindergarten had to go all the way across town, get on a bus without their older siblings. Like, we don't need any more houses right there. We're already getting all of those rental ones behind the new Chase. We have the Wawa and all of that. Let's be done with all of that development, at least in my backyard. Everybody else's backyard, go for it. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, can I add one thing? Mary would like to know if we can take the stakes down from the survey. The
you
markers.
can pull the stakes, yeah.
There
You
you
can pull it. Their work, the land surveyors were out surveying the ground. That was one of the due diligence items that we wanted done. They've picked up whatever mark in the ground is there. Don't pull that mark. You can pull it's called a witness stake. You can pull a witness stake. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Al Shanko, 100 Ashford Drive. Just a question about the timing of the vote and why we chose to do it in May as opposed to doing it when more people are voting. For example, like Upper Providence had a similar vote that was rejected. And I understand the point of like, hey, we have this farm here, but this is a very significant tax increase that is changing how we're taxing the tax base here. I'm more supportive of splitting it or things like that. As an owner and a property owner, it's like I understand it's both ways, but to me, it's more valued in the sense that property values will go up from this. I feel like property value, the homeowners should be, paying for that as well, not just owners.
Andy, I think we were under time constraints. If you want to touch on that.
Yeah, the act allows you to do it in a primary or a general election. And as you know, there's an agreement of sale, the Alabama State. So there was a time pressure element on the township. And I don't know that the estate's gonna hang around forever and wait for the township. So the decision was made to do it in the this primary election to make sure we hit all our milestones under the agreement.
Got it, but it's like that's a one purchase, but you're using it for many other things, and now we're saying we have to force it in now because of this thing that we've been planning for 2.5 years. So why didn't we plan for the
We
vote?
didn't plan for 2.5 years.
I thought we were going for 2.5 years looking back, right?
Right. It started in 2023 with our preliminary discussions with the estate.
Yeah.
The agreement of sale ultimately occurred
In October.
in October.
Yeah.
So, between now and October, you want to say that that's.
Not that, but more of the foresight of saying, hey, we're gonna if we're working towards agreement of sale, why wasn't that then planned ahead of time saying, hey, how are we gonna pay for this?
We negotiated agreement of sale, that didn't happen, that took months, and they were talking at the same time to other developers, so. There's
Right.
no sense in putting a referendum on the ballot if we didn't have a property that we're actually gonna put the money towards.
So is it only for this one property? That's my question. Again, I'm not combative here. But I'm saying it's more that like we're saying we're used for all these other things.
You
But-
can't.
I thought we said we were, that there's other properties, like, it's not just this one thing, it's many things that we don't do. And then we're gonna offset like our current property taxes and use that, like, meaning, so like, we're gonna move some of that expense to run everything else, because the property, the EIT that we're putting towards acquiring property, maintaining property, comes out of our current budget. So now we can dedicate that funding directly there. Now you can spend that money elsewhere. So we're just raising taxes to acquire, now we can do more open space. But we're also allowing for that. So why wasn't that more planning put in place ahead of time so it could be voted for a larger amount of people?
I think your point is well taken. I think it comes back to the fact that there were two parties that were trying to come to an agreement of sale in this particular instance. And they had a finite amount of time that they would wait.
Right.
And if we were beyond that, then they weren't going to agree to the transaction.
Yeah.
So the township, in connection with the Alabak property itself, really had no choice but to get the ballot question.
Yeah, from their perspective, I totally understand that.
Yeah.
And more, we had several years leading up to it.
Right.
Could have said, hey, why don't we
Well,
get that?
one of the main reasons we didn't do it before,
Yeah.
from my point of view, the townships run very well, and we would have been able to absorb this if it were only a $5 million property. But as it turned out, the way real estate's been going crazy, it was much more than we thought in the beginning. And as it turned out, we came to the agreement of sale. As a board, we decided we were gonna buy it, and then we kind of found out how much it was. So at that point, we realized that we're gonna have to do something with this, as opposed to just take it out of the general fund and start paying a bill. So that's kind of where it came from. It was more of a, not that we were blindsided, but it was much more than I thought it was gonna be. So that's kind of why we're floating this.
Great, thank you.
Come on down.
Alan Duddy, Cheswick Drive in Harleysville.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you again. Just a quick question, is there any plan to develop the frontage along 63 as commercial?
There is none.
Okay, there is doubt, because there has been rumors, now you mentioned
Well, just the tri-party agreement will be additional 2.5 acres.
the medical facility.
Well, medical or whatever Penix decides to develop, but
Okay,
the rest of it's all.
It's a very small slice.
Okay.
Outside, just so they can get their square footage they want in to expand that building. So.
understood. Thank you.
They still will go through the approval process, so early to.
David Beachy, 114 Deer Run Court, Harleysville. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Terror is full of my thunder, but first off, thank you to the chair. Everything you've done, I did not realize it's been 2.5, almost 3 years. So I appreciate all the time and effort it's been put forth. Of course, the number one question is, what is the land going to be used for? And I get it, you can't answer that. Just as you said, we need to put input from the community, and I think that is the proper thing to do. But I believe you mentioned during the appraisal process, you had to designate a vision or an option for the appraisal. Was it, can you just talk about that?
They only demanded the highest and best use of the ground. So the only way to get that is to do a plan, a by right plan, for what development could occur on by right. That's without any relief from zoning or anything else. So that plan was formulated, and then the appraiser uses that to determine what the value of the ground.
Got
Right, that's the plan that we came up with over there, to show that what they thought conceptually they could put in there. And we've already had engineers say that they can get more than that.
But what you see there is commercial across the front, right at the top along Summit down by Main Street. And then apartments, buildings behind, and single family units in the rear.
Gotcha.
It's identical to across the street.
Great.
It's mixed use, it's the same zone. It's what they're allowed.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Second question. I think it's an easy one. Preserved farmland, technically or legally, what does that mean?
Technically.
Meaning,
Well,
what if a farm wants to sell? Can they not sell then? What is a protected farmland?
Yeah, I
mean?
mean, if it's preserved, it's.
Preserved farmland, maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so preserve farmland, at least through the farmland preservation program, it's a state program administered at the counties. We essentially just buy the development rights. So we place a conservation easement on the property. We pay the property owners market value minus the ag value. That's the easement value that we end up paying them. And we purchase the development rights. The property owners still pay taxes. They still own the land, but they can never develop. And to get out of that, good luck. You know, sue the state. Good luck.
Okay.
But you can
Not
sell
something
it.
that can happen.
The
Yeah.
farmer can sell
You
it.
can sell to
but
another farmer.
It has to
You can sell it to a developer, but it can't be developed.
Gotcha.
You can sell, you can put it on the market, sell it wherever you want, but it's sold.
Got
It's sold as a preserved farm in perpetuity, regardless of who purchases it.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
You got it.
I just mentioned real quickly, you know, you can conserve farmland and call it protected farmland, but it might not be farmland preservation the same way that Stephen's talking about. So I could put a conservation easement with a landowner on a different property that is a farm, but it doesn't necessarily have to be an agricultural easement. The agricultural easement is what Stephen is describing, but you could have other types of easements on farmland that do not require it to be farmed forever. It just has to be open space, or you follow the plan of that conservation. So there's a little complexity there, but the words matter in that way.
Yeah, and the reality is, as Stephen said in the beginning, and I used to get confused, because I thought it was great open space, and I was told very, very directly, this is a working farm, this is for production of agriculture. It's nice that it's pretty and you can look at it, but it's supposed to be producing something.
This transaction's not a preserved farm transaction though, right? We're just
Open
buying.
space, open space.
I did. Hi, Alicia Shenko, 100 Astor Drive. My question is more to the consultant group. So when you guys were putting together the proposals and whatnot for the use of the land that we don't know what it will be used for yet, did you look into the costs associated with the different restoration strategies for the land? Let's say if we were using the land as is and letting it go into an open field with a parking lot and a pavilion, that cost is going to be significantly less than, let's say, restoring the stream buffers, adding in forested lands, working on the hydrology, because right now I'm assuming as a farm it's very flat and the natural hydrology has been moved out. So do we know what the cost associated is with that land to turn it back into open preserved forested wetland stream buffer land versus a park with a pavilion?
So I'm Kate Rahman again, yeah, I guess for the record, Kate Rahman, Natural Lands, and I am a planner with Natural Lands, and part of my job is master planning of public spaces. So all of that goes into it, and that's what makes it a kind of expensive process. So once the land is protected, there are grants from the state that provide the money to do the planning. There's two committees that would go into place. So if the referendum passes, an open space committee would have to be appointed, and that open space committee is 5 to 7 folks appointed by the supervisors who would oversee transactions moving forward. That's a little different than the Parks Committee, or I'm not sure if you have an Environmental Advisory Committee. The transactions are kind of a specific skill set. And then if again the property is acquired, there'd be a committee of folks brought together to help do the park master plan. And as well as consultants, there's even recreation specialists that might consider how much recreation you have and what your needs are. Is there an unmet need in the township in terms of recreation, and what is that? Do you need more pickleball essentially? And what's the best spot on the site for pickleball? And considering other factors as well. So the riparian areas that are so important to the water quality that David talked about. So all of these things would be considered. But again, it's not an overnight decision like, well, we'll have pickleball in a couple of fields, and it's about a year and a half usually that goes into the park master plan. And there's usually several public meetings, and we call them charrettes or visioning, that would take place where the public is invited both to provide ideas and comment on those, comment on what consultants have recommended. So I hope that's helpful in terms of the next steps, but that's also a reason why the township is, it would be a bit putting the cart before the horse to have a plan before you bought it. That would be very expensive and potentially wasteful.
That help?
It does. So I guess a follow-up question to that would be, when we are looking at this open space tax, this 0.25% that's going to get added to income, using it towards other properties or using it toward this property in the long run, is there, when the reason I was asking that is there at all a funding opportunity or granting opportunity to be able to afford to turn it into something other than a pavilion with a pickleball field?
Every year you can apply for more grants, more and more and more.
Do we have the staff to do that?
Indeed, we do.
Okay.
And the county has implementation for our for our county comprehensive plan, which is called the 2040 comprehensive plan. That, whoa, we're already up to 2050. We plan ahead. But there are lots of communities come in for utilizing that money, coming in looking for matches. It's a very generous program. And they come in for implementation of their plans. They have their plans, they have match money, and the county is very generous in helping people fulfill the desires of people to use their open space. So that's just one thing. But
so just so I'm clear, like there is the availability and the plans and the infrastructure in place to do something more with the property if we buy it.
Well, to a point, right? Provided the May 19th goes forward and we're there, we're gonna appoint the group. We're not gonna do any of this before it's the appropriate time. It just doesn't make sense. And the township staff, we have a special projects coordinator. The very purpose of that person is to pursue funding opportunities. It's be great, so you got it, but yeah, that's the point. And she has garnered literally millions of dollars for, your tax money going to Harrisburg or elsewhere, it comes back to us, which is great.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna take the short way.
Well,
I'm Mark Fennell. Good enough. Mark Fennell over on Pamplin Circle here in Harleysville. So first of all, I want to echo what the gentleman said before. Commend you all of you for all the time and effort. 2.5 years is a long time. The fact that you're in agreement on this being something you're willing to give up your stipend for, to see like the political agreement that this is an important issue that you guys are in agreement for. That's also encouraging to hear. I'll say from a personal note, as you did notice me nodding my head, I'll say that I am a beneficiary of some of those trails. And as you built some of those trails during COVID, I was very glad to get out of the house, okay? Because there wasn't a lot of places you could go. So very glad to get out there and go work on the trails. And then from a professional side, I end up working with a lot of state, county, municipalities, public entities. And I want to commend you because it does often take money in order to get money. Okay, in order to make things happen. So having a kitty, having something to get something started puts you in the township in a position to benefit from the other money out there. So I think that's a good thing. Some of the questions were already asked, so I would appreciate hearing those. But one question we'll ask is, it looks like you're looking to raise about $2 million. I think you had about a 21 point something million dollar sale. Are you planning on structuring it so that you can pay off debt service, apply for grants, leverage other money, as well as perhaps preserving some funds towards other open space acquisition going forward?
So the way it's gonna work is, earthquake effects moves forward on May 19th. That will be a sufficient amount of money to pay the mortgage due on either a 25 or 30-year bond issue. So we'll get a bond issue probably later this year, if that goes forward, and then that will pay, those years moving forward. If we get other money to come in, we will use that accordingly throughout our open space. We have plenty of things to do. Make sense?
Fantastic. Yep, absolutely. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
We're all- Questions? Any other questions?
No.
Sounds good.
I thought maybe he had one.
No.
I didn't want to hear that
Oh,
question. Hey, everybody. I love our trails, our bike trails, our walking trails. It's beautiful around here. I love open spaces. I'm all for open spaces. The bummer about sorry, Margaret Berg, Lower Salford, sorry. So the bummer about this property, of course, as you all know, why it took you so long, is the encumbrances. So again, this is going to probably be lawyer heavy. And some questions for you guys about the open space law, just to make sure that we're dotting all the i's, crossing all the t's, and we don't go wrong with this. First of all, I have a real estate law question. So if a right of first refusal is a real estate document, it was part of another purchase. And so if something is written in, and I guess it was the law in the 70s, right? And there's 4 sellers and only one seller signs off on the written in part, is that legally enforceable?
It's been represented to us that the current owner of the Alabama or the any shopping center is a successor to all 4 of those individuals.
Only one sign?
Right.
Only one sign,
And they've
yeah.
made a claim, right?
I understand they've made a claim and that they threatened to sue, from listening.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people who watches videos while I'm washing dishes or whatever.
Yeah.
So they threatened to sue, I get it.
Right.
But if it's a written in portion, which already can be very challengeable, because it wasn't related at all to what was written, crossed out and written below. And so, I mean, it is a legal question.
Yeah.
If one party to a sale for 4 parties writes that in, is that enforceable? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but it seems dubious.
Well, we weighed the options, of getting into a challenge.
Yeah, yeah.
And this board has discussed that thoroughly, and we've arrived at an agreement that hopefully can get us over the finish line without having to spend years in litigation arguing over those issues.
And tax dollars.
Yes.
I understood, but
As much as we like Ian.
I understand.
I'm not a lawyer, so I can't give probability of success. So I'm, you have to rely on a lawyer to give you probability.
You're
of
making
success.
fine arguments.
Yeah. So then, Henning's having an option to have 2 to 2.5 acres. I'm assuming it's mostly along Main Street, popping out, or it goes back.
It runs
Okay.
across the property line from Main Street
So
back.
kind of, if we're looking at the medical part of it, it's like this, and then mostly it goes back. Okay. And they can have another drive-through, they can have a medical or parking.
Well, they haven't presented us with any formal.
Well, they can present one of those 3 things,
That's-
and we can decline it. You can decline it if you choose to decline it. Okay, I just wanted to ask that question. So again, lawyer and Pennsylvania open space law. They got into trouble in Upper Pottsgrove with a farm where they tried to build some stuff on it. So my question is around, they got into a big mess there. How do we avoid that when we have this encumbrance and there is going to be some development? How are we 100% sure that as we go into this and as we structured this deal, that we're not going to do a similar blunder where we go afoul and a court says that we can't do our plan?
Well, the open space tax revenue can only be used for open space purposes under the act. And I think what happened in Lower Pottsgrove was they attempted to build maybe a public works facility or a township building.
Township building in Upper Pottsgrove.
And the underlying ground was purchased with open space tax revenue, the violation.
Right, so they had a similar, so we're putting it right on the thing that we're purchasing the farm with the open space. So if like right off the bat, we're giving 2 to 2.5, not giving, there's 2 to.
That's before we own it.
That's why, like, or, and it said, and if not, then we'll make sure it happens immediately after. I think it behooves us all to make sure it does not happen immediately
Under
after,
the current structure,
under the third-party agreement. So like,
H&A is purchasing it directly from the estate, and they're
Right.
putting their own money.
right, there's just a part,
Whatever acreage they need.
right,
And the
and
open space dollars that the township, is able to get.
Separate
revenue
lot.
Will be separate by the balance.
but it has to be separate before we close the deal, because there's like a little wording in there about a backup. I think you don't do it. Don't do it. Don't let yourself even like closing date, push it. And my other question is around the parking lot that they might want to have, and this is more towards them, it's less of a legal question. So if Hennings has asked that they could build a parking lot that they could use on the portion that the township purchases, I think it's in there. So they have to ask permission of you first, but that would run afoul, correct?
I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
But my.
It's not going any on.
There's a little part, they have to ask first.
The piece that they buy.
You know what I'm,
Yeah, there's an opportunity for
To
them to
ask.
request that in the plan.
and we always got to say no, or we're,
But we don't know, what their plans are going to be, of course. We wanted to leave that opportunity available.
but
I think
I'm
the
not sure.
discussions were that it could be a shared use, parking lot
Does anybody
situation, and we don't, we'd have to evaluate that under the act if the request was made.
Yeah, because that recent court kind of happened at the same time, around the same time-ish, so we have to be very clear on that and not approve something that is,
Yeah.
unless we're sure, I mean, obviously, we look into it, we don't.
The township's interested in running afoul of the requirements of the Open Space Act.
Mhm.
Zero interest.
Well, I just want to make sure I'm just getting those points out, because of course we would much prefer it was a property without an encumbrance, and I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but maybe if I were a lawyer, maybe I would take a role at going to court. But the other question I have is about value per acre. It would seem to me that the commercial, the part that they're getting is maybe a higher value per acre. I wonder if that came up in negotiations. That's a question.
Right, it's zoned MU, and it could be zone C in the future.
Or I just mean because
So-
it's located in front and like they're getting the same per acre price, which we get stuff in back, which isn't as high.
They could arguably be overpaying.
Yeah, I mean, just where it's located. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Oh, I did have one other question. I'm so sorry. Somebody asked me this today. It's not my question. So I also watching the videos, I see that you guys, it seems like if this doesn't pass, which a lot of times, especially going to the highest level, like Lower Fred did 0.04 and that passed. They had a very specific farm and use in that they wanted to acquire. And going to the higher level, it might not pass. And I heard you guys talk about increasing the real estate tax if the earned income tax fails. And somebody was asking me, so businesses typically wouldn't have to be part of the earned income tax, but if we went to increasing the real estate taxes, then presumably businesses would also have to pay more in real estate tax. And somebody said, what's the math on that in terms of what would residents be kicking in an increased real estate tax versus businesses? And how much would the millage be?
So right now, we bring in, I'll do this as best I can, but if you want more specifics, I'd suggest you give it to Chakowski a call. The township brings in, I think, about $3 million in real estate taxes to cover the note. I've told you it's about $2 million. That's about a 60% increase in the real estate tax for the township, which is, predominantly why we said those on fixed income we didn't want to adversely impact them. So does that kind of give you what you're looking for? Are you looking for a little bit?
His thought was how much if you go with real estate,
Yeah.
and businesses have to pay some more too, like what percent is coming from the
Real estate
resident?
taxes aren't necessarily businesses. If the business owns the building, whoever owns the building, the entity that owns the building is gonna pay higher taxes. So
We just don't know what percentage.
we did not go building by building, we'll check all that. We did not do that.
I mean, and on top of all of these, we're also gonna have 5% school tax increase. So Everybody wants our taxes.
You're very likable people.
Think about what it'll go up if there's more houses there and we need more schools built.
I am not, again, I am not against the open space at all. I also have a pool and would hate to have to look at what the potential is if you happen to look at, really. I don't know how, I mean, the signage I find to be very deceptive, for lack of another word. It's really hard to even tell who put those signs up. It says citizens of Lower Southford, but honestly, it's Lower Southford. Nobody asked me about them.
Have you been to the township meetings prior to tonight?
No, I actually said at that, no, but I've watched just about every minute meeting since, and I actually said tonight that I will be attending more, so. Thanks for calling me out.
Your attendance as well. Any other questions for either us or our invitees? We're very patient on them.
The actual wording of the referendum.
Name and address for the.
Oh, sorry, Janet Flisek, April Hill Way. The wording in the referendum says Allenback Farm plus other property interests. Do you have something in mind of that other property interest? That's not clearly defined?
It is not, and it's purposefully not, and here's the reason why. There have been a lot of other properties that have gone and become developed. If you read the social media post, the Lower Southford Elementary School was one.
Yes.
The school district owned, as you know, and sold it to a developer. The township isn't always in the know when these properties get sold or are going to be sold. But to the extent that we are and we're able to purchase them, we'd like to at least have that opportunity. If it's especially if it's open space or a farm next to our existing open space, right? Or it can connect trails, it's gonna be thoughtful, right? And meaningful for the township. And that's why we left it open-ended. Initially, it's clearly gonna be used to purchase the Allenback property. In 25 or 30 years, that note will be exhausted and there may be other opportunities to purchase other ground. So that's the language. Nothing hidden, nothing.
Okay.
We don't have anything on the agenda.
There's no. Okay.
Nothing for sure.
Okay.
But there is interest. People come to the township and say, hey, listen, I'm a farmer. I've got 20 acres. I got 10 acres. Would you guys be interested in purchasing it? Typically our answer is yes, if we can afford it. But that's always
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Any other questions? No, we're good. We're ready to wrap this part up.
I just wanted to say, before we head out, a sincere thank you to the folks from Natural Lands for putting this together tonight, and our guest speakers for taking time out of their evening. The insights that we've heard tonight could be invaluable to our decisions that we have to make coming down in the future, hopefully. For me, Lower Southford Township's open spaces aren't just lines on a map. They're a backdrop of my life. This is where I learned to play soccer and baseball and where I first balanced on 2 wheels to ride a bike. But even more meaningful, has been the chance to watch my own children enjoy the same opportunities. Whenever I walk our township trail network, I feel a deep sense of gratitude for the visionaries who came before us, the planners who had the foresight to protect this land, and one of those visionaries was my father. He was working as a supervisor in the 70s and worked tirelessly with township leaders to help acquire municipal properties that make up many of our parks today. Now the torch has been passed to us. We have a choice to make with the upcoming open space referendum. This ballot initiative asks us to authorize a dedicated open space tax, a proven tool that many of our neighboring townships already use to protect their character. A yes vote means we can secure the Allenback property. It means we can protect Lower Southford's remaining scenic landscapes, properly care for the parks we already love. Most importantly, it creates a protected fund, ensuring that we have, when the next opportunity to save a piece of our township arises, we are ready to act. Thank you for being here tonight. Thanks for showing your interest, and please make a plan to join me in voting yes. While this concludes our formal program, we invite you to please stick around and ask any questions that you might have of the speakers and supervisors that are here tonight. So thank you again for coming out and your interest.
That's gonna end the recorded portion of the evening.